Okay, awesome. So I know most of you who are here at this moment know me, so I'm just going to introduce myself in this context. So as you know, I'm a chiropractor and a Pilates instructor, and I have worked in different contexts, so working different locum jobs, working in different like countries, Netherlands, Botswana, South Africa, full-time employment, owning my own practice, all the different good, bad, and ugly of all the different situations. Um, and when I was, or as I'm practicing as a chiropractor, I started to get a little bit more interested in things regarding behavior change and communication, because I realized like that's where I was bumping up against issues with my own practice. Like I was so excited to share all this stuff about health and about wellness, and like you could feel so good, and I'm so excited to change your life. And then the patient was like, not particularly excited about this. And so I really started to dive into this whole world of behavior change to really help my patients be able to navigate that. Um, but I really got interested in it just from a personal perspective as well, because I had coaching from a personal perspective and really found it so incredibly helpful. So when I found out that there was such a thing as health coaching, I was like, what? This is amazing. um, so I wanted to, even though it also was for my patients and it changed the way that I practice, it changed the way that I thought about health, it changed the way that I thought about being a clinician. I also really wanted to do the coaching itself more intensively. And that's when I started my health coaching practice. And then when I was doing that, I realized the people that I most wanted to work with and help are fellow women in healthcare, so other women clinicians. So that's a little story of how I got to here and how I got to this workshop. Um, and also because I work with healthcare providers who are mainly in that context of like feeling burnt out or stressed, struggling to prioritize their health, struggling to find that balance, busy. And so that's part of where we're going to dive into today is like that analogy of the cup, and that we can't pour from an empty cup. We also can't drink from an empty cup, and that's also important. And we want to know how do we actually go about keeping that cup full or filling that cup up. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I've got some slides. I just want to, okay. So if all is going well, you guys can see the refill title with a workshop for female clinicians. I'm just going to move your faces over to the side. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're going to be doing on the 2 different days, we're essentially going to be looking at that thing, that in that analogy of the cup. So on day 1, we're going to be mainly looking at what is coming out of the cup, what is like being drained in terms of resources, what are we using in terms of our energy reserves. And then the day 2 is more kind of looking at what is going into that cup and what is keeping it full. So as I said, there are going to be replays, so you don't need to take like all the notes and like get everything down and remember things. You can go back and look at this later if there's something specifically you want to go back into. But just be here with us and workshop these things. I'd love for you guys to already feel at the end of this workshop that you already have a fuller cup. And then you can take the same tools and perspective shifts that we go through today, and you can keep applying them in your life going forward, so you can keep that momentum going. And then I will also be mentioning at the end of the day tomorrow how I kind of work with clients, and if that is something that you're interested in, kind of getting additional support, then we can chat about that then. So I'm going to have the comment section kind of off to the side when I'm talking, just so I don't get distracted by it. But you guys are welcome to like share stuff in there. And then at certain points when we are going to be workshopping something specific, or I'm going to be asking you guys or like prompting you guys and we're going to be chatting about stuff, then I'll bring the comment section back up and be able to see what you guys are saying. And if you have any questions, unless it's like specifically about what we're working on and it's kind of urgent to the thing that we're currently working on, and try and keep them for the end because we will have a section to ask questions at the end. So we're going to start with just some kind of signs and symptoms that you are running on empty. So there's some things that are kind of obvious, right? Like if we think of low reserves or low energy in a tank or a cup, you might feel tired, you might feel exhausted, you might feel drained. But you also can think of, if you're looking at the difference between your resources and your demands, if your resources feel like they're really running on low, but your demands are so high, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel unable to cope. You're going to feel like you're always behind, or like if you are coping, you're just coping, and you feel like if anything extra had to come onto my plate right now, I think I would like not be able to cope with that. Feeling stressed out because you literally feel stressed, like your whole, like if you think of a bridge, that like that structure is stressed because that load is too high for what it can carry. You might be feeling unfulfilled, and partly I like to think about it as like when we are doing work that really lights us up, that we feel fulfilled by, that we really feel excited by, it is something in and of itself that fills up our cup. So we don't end up just giving and giving and giving with feeling like nothing is kind of going back into that. So those are some of the signs and symptoms of like currently, being on empty or near empty. And the other part of that is like, if you think of the idea of carrying on like this for like 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, it's like a terrifying thought, because you literally feel like there's no way that I can keep going on this low reserves for that long. So in other words, it's unsustainable. This whole like method of running on like low or near low or empty off, my Dutch is going through, is terrifying, because we know that we can't keep going like this forever. So let's talk about the opposite, right? So if we are feeling filled up, if our cup is feeling full, if we are feeling energized and lit up and joyful and generous, you can imagine how this space, like if you're feeling this way, I like to imagine it as we're giving them from overflow. Like we're so filled up ourselves, there's so much resource and so much in our cup that it is overflowing, and that's how we are of service. That's how we're giving to the world. That's how we are being generous. So our generosity doesn't feel extractive. It doesn't feel like we are giving to others at a cost to ourselves. So I like to kind of find some kind of word or some kind of image that helps you kind of connect with this kind of feeling. So you can kind of think of words that make sense for you, like filled or nourished or alive or resourced, joyful, energized. Another way that you can do this is to find some kind of image that evokes that same kind of emotion. So an image like this, or imagining an image of like two people really connecting. You can also think of borrowing some kind of emotion from another part in your life that you do feel like that. Like you can access that emotion from a different part of your life, and you're welcome to share in the comments as well if there's something that you can connect with in that way. Like you see your child, or you have this moment of connection with your partner, or a patient has this moment or this breakthrough that you feel is so moving. Those kinds of things that just have that same kind of energy for you, and just really kind of tapping into that. Kids, they are gorgeous. So we want to kind of build a compelling vision of this, right? So if we really can tap into this deep understanding that this space is where you're going to do your best work from. This is the space where you're going to be your most generous from. This is the space where you can be the clinician that you want to be, the human that you want to be. This is all coming from this space. And if you do really connect with this emotionally, um, you can think of all the things, all the work that you might need to do in order to have a full cup. Maybe that's learning to set boundaries, being willing for people to be disappointed in you, not managing other people's experience of you, not managing other people's judgments of you, all those things. If you're anything like me, those things have like a visceral, like, ugh. And if all you have on the other side is like, Sarah said I should probably like, maybe not do this anymore and I should set boundaries and like, because maybe one day I might burn out and it might be not great and whatever, but like right now, this feels like the most compelling thing. So you want something on the other side of that that really like feels so exciting. Like this is what I'm building. This is what I'm creating. And it feels so incredible. And then I'm willing to do some of the more uncomfortable work or difficult work that might get me there, because those things start to look really small in relation to what you are going for. So if you guys have like images and stuff, feel free to share them with me, send them to me later as well. We can also chat about it on the Facebook group, just like sharing little images that can help us all kind of connect with this feeling and this, essentially this vision. Just going to take a step. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of an audit, and I'm going to just set a timer for 2 minutes. And if it helps to think of this as like a little bit of a rant, go for it. But just think of like anything that you can think of that is coming out of your cup. So anything that's like draining resources of you, something that feels either stressful or draining, exhausting, a trigger, you can think of it like that. Sometimes it's not necessarily negative, but you just feel like it's taking up more energy than you'd like it to, or however you kind of connect with that idea of like what's coming out of your cup. We're just going to audit that for 2 minutes. So just write down as many as you can in 2 minutes and go. Got about 30 seconds left. And if there's some that feel quite vague and you want to be a bit more specific, like if you've just written work, try and have a few more kind of specific ones underneath that. Like if it's home life, like have a few more specific ones underneath that. And if it feels just vague, then that's fine. But the more specific you are, the more it'll help for the next step. Okay, cool. Got a few things. a lot of things. Okay. So we're going to go through a bit of a tool now. So a bit of a tool. We're going to go through a tool now that you can use. So just have your list kind of off to the side. We are going to pick one just now to kind of use this tool on. But I just want to explain a few things about the map and have a few things be clear before we start doing that. So this is called the STEER map. And it was developed by Dr. Sasha Hines. She is a developmental psychologist and a coach. And there are different versions of this, but it's essentially based on the idea behind cognitive behavioral therapy. So we're essentially looking at the relationships between our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. And the main thing that we are using this tool for is what they call self-distancing. So it's one of the big benefits of things like therapy, of coaching, of journaling, that kind of thing, where you are essentially taking what's in your brain and you're just looking at it from a bit of a distance, like you're seeing it essentially on paper instead of having it kind of swimming around in your head. And that enables you to look at it a little bit more clearly and see what's going on and see some of the patterns of thoughts and behaviors as well. Because most of the way that we kind of operate and the thoughts and behaviors and actions are largely kind of automated blueprints, essentially, like things that we've kind of learned and automated and we do kind of on autopilot. And this can be a really helpful tool to just kind of look at that a little bit closer and get curious about it. One of there was a statistician and he said, all models are wrong, some are useful. And it's essentially this idea of like, when we are creating a model or a tool, we are reducing the complexities, we're reducing the nuance to a model or a tool that is helpful to us. And the very fact that we are reducing it is what makes it helpful and useful, but we also need to realize that it's not going to encompass every nuance of human psychology and behavior. So just remembering that it's a tool. And then also on that, it is a tool, not a weapon. So if you think of like something that you use in your clinical practice, that if you just use it a little bit differently, it would be harming your patient instead of helping them. Like imagine a reflex hammer. If you just use it differently, you can like hit your patient on the head with it or whatever, right? So the tool itself is kind of neutral, but it's the way that we use it that determines how effective it is and how it feels for us to use it. So we want to be engaging in any kind of like whatever you want to call that, self-development or change work or inner work. We always want to approach that from the assumption that we are whole, we don't need to be fixed, we don't need to be changed, we don't need to earn love and worthiness and all of that. We're not trying to say I'm broken and I need fixing, so I better use this tool to try and like fix myself. And we're not using it as a tool to beat ourselves up, like a reflex hammer, of like, why do you do this? Or what is wrong with you? That kind of thing. We're using this as a tool of love, of growth, of compassionate change. And not only does that feel way better, but it also is, according to the evidence, the most effective way of changing. Criticism and shame does not get us to change. So that all being said, we're now going to use this tool. And I just want to show the general kind of structure of it. So we are taking a specific situation, we're reducing whatever our kind of stressor is to a very specific situation that happened, an example of that thing, a specific number, anything that is quite factual. So if you had to think of like 50 different people coming together, they would all agree on these facts. It's just the situation, it's the neutral circumstance. And then we're going to look at, like, from that situation, what thoughts do I have? And you can think of that almost like sentences in your brain. What sentences tend to come up when I bump up against that situation? And then based on the things that I'm thinking, what emotions tend to come up, what physical sensations or stories or narrative in terms of like my physical emotion. And then from from those emotions that you're feeling, what are the actions or behaviors that you tend to take? And then the result is essentially the product or the sum or the totality of all the actions that you are taking. So this will get clearer as we work through this, but this is just to give you an out of the model. And if you've ever had the situation where you've like gone to something with a friend and afterwards they say to you like, did you see how condescending that person was, or some like comment like that, and you're like, what? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you literally did not have that thought about what that person said at all. I want to share an example of um, what happens at work. So we have our coffee machine where we also get our coffee, but where patients also get coffee. We have that in the waiting room. And I was saying to one of my friends in the break, I was saying, oh, I couldn't even get coffee this morning because my patient was already in the waiting room. And she was like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, my patient was already there, so I couldn't get coffee. And she was like, but wait, were you running late? Like, had she been waiting there for a while? Like, what? And I was like, no, she was just there. She was early for her appointment, but like, it's awkward, right? Like, you go there and you drinking your coffee, but your patient's waiting for you. And she was like, I've never, ever in my life, like, even thought that that would be like an issue. She's like, even if I'm late, I will still drink my coffee because I'm like, well, the patient would probably prefer if I've like had my coffee and chilled for a bit first. Or she would just take her when she's like fetching her patient from the waiting room, she would just take a coffee with her and she would drink it in the treatment room, which is also something that's never crossed my mind. And it's not about which one is right or which one is wrong or which one is ethical. We're not having that conversation. It's just about like recognizing that from the very same situation, we had a completely different set of like beliefs and thoughts. Like, to me, if someone is waiting for me and I'm drinking my coffee, to me that has this feeling of like I am putting my needs in front of theirs, or I have this fear of like looking lazy because she's already there. I could be working, but I'm choosing to have coffee. You know, all the beliefs and thoughts and assumptions that come from that can be so different from one person to the other, and they will inform all of the things that result from that. Okay, so I have chosen one that commonly comes up, which is that patients, patients either not taking responsibility for their health or like blaming you for the fact that they didn't get better. So you can pick something of your audit that you feel like you want to workshop, or that feels particularly like strong to you, or that you'd be willing to share as well. We want to create a space where we just kind of sharing stuff. We don't have a lot of spaces where we can share this kind of stuff. So this is a safe space. We're not judging each other, but you can also share what you feel comfortable sharing. But just sharing any one that you want to workshop. And then we're going to try and find the specific situation that happened. So you can think of an example when it happened, or I like to think of it as like someone telling a really boring story, like, and then they went and did this, and that person said this, and this person said that, like very emotionally, like there's no emotion to it, there's no story, there's just like, these are the facts. And if you're having any trouble like finding that, let me know and we can help you out. Just maybe give me a thumbs up if you've got one. But we'd love you to share. Okay, cool. So maybe setting boundaries. What is an example that has come up recently? Are there too many to start with? Just pick one that you're either comfortable with sharing, or like the person that you struggle the most with setting boundaries, maybe. You pick what you feel comfortable sharing. Can I auction my husband? To us or I'll just share mine and then you guys can let me know what yours is. Setting boundaries as well. Patients that tend to lack the responsibility for their own health. I tend to compensate and take on that responsibility. Awesome. I mean, not awesome, but awesome for sharing. So try and think of an example when that happened and then like report exactly this example that I'm sharing is pretty similar to that. So you're welcome to use the same things because this is the kind of factual thing that would probably happen that would lead you to think, oh, they're not taking responsibility. I'm going to compensate. I'm going to take on that responsibility. Okay, so Lauren, what is the specific situation? What is the like neutral time that happened that you struggle to set boundaries around getting admin done? And Bex, what would you say is the situation where that would come up? If it's the same as the one on the screen, that's totally fine too. And Tash and Em, if you can either share or just give me a thumbs up on the thing if you're done, but you're not sharing. That's also fine. Small talk, quite draining. For example, at the end of session and a patient brings up a new story. So you could say something like for the specific situation, sorry, um, let's say appointment ends at 4:30 and the patient at 4:30 or 4:35 starts telling me a new story. So we're just like the facts. This is the time that they started telling me the story. And that was when their session had already ended. You're not alone. It's like appointment ended at 4:30 at 4:45. Okay, cool. Have we all got a specific situation? We want it as neutral as possible, as factual, as boring as possible. And I know it feels like already horrible just to do that because you're like, but you don't understand. This and this happened, and this is the context, and this is the I know. But just try and share it as like neutral as possible. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one. But guilt when I'm doing something. Wait, sorry. Guilt when I'm doing something that is just for me and not important or productive or tidying a box of knickknacks when I should be writing. Okay, cool. So do you have like a recent example of like exactly when that happened? Like, can you bring that up in your brain? Okay, cool. Then that'll be like the facts because um, doing something just for me is already away from neutral or not important or productive already is like your thought about that. So if you had to have like a boring person, sorry, not a boring person, a person telling a boring story, what would be like like I would agree with you that that's what happened, or 50 other people, an alien would come to Earth and they would agree that that's what happened. Human one goes to room and takes out box of unidentified object. Okay, Bex. Patients don't see the use in regular exercise to keep the body mobile, moving, or change the habits contribute to pain. They then complain that the pain is not getting better, and I try to overcompensate. Even more neutral. So, and maybe shorten it a little bit. So, when would that exactly happen? So, think of like the patient interaction of like when exactly would you start having this whole like when this would come up, right? So, let's say the patient arrives for their follow-up consult. What do they say that makes that this kind of narrative come up? I have lots of pain. Okay, cool. So say it as like patient comes back for follow-up and says, and you can put quotation marks, I have lots of pain. Okay, very specific. Okay, so from that specific situation, we're going to pick the main thought that comes up. So the one that you already initially kind of went with is probably the main thought that comes up. Like, for example, this is not productive, or maybe Tash, for you, like I'm already late, or like they're inconsiderate, or whatever the thought is that comes up, or like Bex, your thought maybe like they don't take responsibility, or they're not taking responsibility, or even they're not taking responsibility, which means I now have to take more responsibility. So whatever kind of main thought that comes up when that very neutral situation, or that very like boring factual situation, when you come up against that, what is the main thought that comes up? And you might have multiple thoughts, but if you look at the map, we're wanting to see what emotion comes out of that thought. And different emotions will have different thoughts, which means they'll each have their own map. And you're welcome to kind of go a bit further and like map out each thought and what emotion that brought and that brought. But we just want to try and pick one and then work from that. So feel free to share again. This is mine. So when I have a patient that says they're not feeling any better, my immediate assumption is that they think that I was the one at fault. So they're blaming me. They're criticizing my abilities as a healthcare provider. Okay, cool. What is your specific situation, La? So if you want to, when you share it in the comments, try and put like, if you put an enter, it usually just posts it. So you can put like the specific situation and then put like a dash or a full stop or whatever, and then tell me what the thought was. Just so I can see the relationship between the two, that I know you've got a specific situation and the thoughts. It's not important. So decided to go for coffee with someone instead of doing admin. Okay, cool. So did you have admin on the planning? Like you plan to do admin? Like even the narrative of instead of doing admin implies that you had that, like that was my plan, right? So you could say something like, I had planned to do admin, that was in my schedule, but in that same period of time, I went for coffee, something like that. So would everyone agree that it needs to get done? Or is this your thought? That could also be your thought. But maybe have a bit more specific situation, a bit more neutral, a bit more like just the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. Like telling an even more boring story. Okay, I could have done admin. Getting there. Close enough to neutral. I'm sure you could have. Because we want to notice that already that's implying like even though maybe necessarily it wasn't, I didn't plan to do it, I didn't have a schedule, but in my brain, I should have done it then. Human horse went to the office. I love it. Human one walked into the office and turned around to go have coffee at 3:47 p.m. Perfect. Okay, cool. Anyone else want to share their specific situation with their thoughts? Small talk with patients. First thought is, so yeah, you still want to reduce that small talk even more neutral, because small talk to you might not be small talk to someone else. They might feel like this is really an important story that they're telling you, but to you it's like, oh, it's small talk. So having something like, at this time, patient starts telling a story about cat named Jeremy. Okay, your first thought is you don't want them to think you're rude for interrupting them or think I don't care. Awesome. Perfect thought. Situation tidying at a time and mentally assigned for writing. Okay, which was important because of a deadline, and the thought, I make bad choices. Awesome, thanks for sharing. Bex, do you need any help? I feel like we're all going to narrate our clinical experience. Human one walked into the room. Human two said, and I quote. Patient, I still have pain. Thought, am I at fault? Awesome. One of the things that you can think about is anytime you have a thought that is a question, so like, what kind of person does this or whatever, try and answer that question. So the thought is, am I at fault? Try and make a statement out of that, like, I'm at fault. Or I think I'm at fault, or I may be at fault, or something like that. It just sometimes helps to go a little bit further in that. Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing, guys. Small talk situation. Had a patient this morning, was already 2 minutes late. The physician told me work contract not being renewed and needs to look for another job. Okay, awesome. Thought I may be at fault. Awesome. Okay, cool. So when we have that specific situation and we have that thought about it, what emotional state is that likely to generate from you, from that thought that you're having? What emotional state is coming from that? And sometimes you might struggle to find a word for your emotional state. If that is the case, just think of the big categories like mad, sad, scared. So I would say emotion avoidance, I think, would be more like an inaction. So it might be more in the action category, but you maybe what emotion would make you avoid something? Like, why are you feeling? Ugh, yeah, there you go. That's perfect. Ugh. So, sorry, I just want to see what your thought was. It's not important. That was your thought. So would ugh come from not important? It's not important. Maybe dismissive or like, um, it's not important. Maybe like meh rather than ugh. We're getting very technical about these emotions. Okay, emotional state, anxiety. I know that one very well. Thoughts maybe deeper, I'm not important. There we go. And like this is where it gets very personal, right? Like it doesn't necessarily always mean that. but maybe that means it for you. Like for you, it might be the most important thing is that I go and have coffee with someone that I love, right? It doesn't always mean that, but maybe that's how that is the thought that comes up for you. Like what I need to do is not important, or depending on what it's related to, like my business or my whatever that admin was related to, like maybe that isn't important, or yeah, like I was saying, like my dreams or my taking care of my health or whatever it is, like I don't feel like valuable enough in that space to prioritize it. That could be a thought that comes up for you. But yeah, you like guilt, shame, yeah. That is it. Mhm. Make sure we're getting. Tash, did you have a emotion? Maybe frustration, anxiety. Okay, awesome. Sort of anxiety. So, La, what is your emotion? Or is it, oh, you're trying to think of it. That's perfect. Mad, sad, bad, scared. But if it's like meh or ugh, that's also fine. Like whatever you like emotionally connect to or like physically connect to. Okay, cool. So when we're thinking of the situation that we came up against, sad, okay, W. uh, or thinking of that specific situation that we bumped up against. And we had that thought, that particular thought. And we had oh, sorry, my emotion didn't come in there. I get anxious or defensive. So if I think they're blaming me, they're criticizing me, they're saying something about me as a healthcare provider, I get anxious about it and I get defensive. So when we're thinking of the situation, the thoughts that came up, and the emotional state that was produced by those thoughts, what typically action or behavior that comes out of that? And sometimes that's an inaction, sometimes it's a reaction, and sometimes it's an actual action. So sometimes you can think of like, if I had a little camera on you in that particular specific moment, what would I see? What kind of behaviors would I see? What kind of actions would I see? Yeah, sad. See one human walking away. Even one walks away. Muscle tension. So you like your whole body is like doing this jaw clenching, also avoidance. And also remember, your phone fell out. You guys still hear me? Um, so also like when we are avoiding one thing and we're doing another, we're still doing that other thing, right? We're still taking that action. So maybe you were avoiding the one thing that you had to do, but you're still doing something else. So you can have that also as part of your actions. What do you tend to do, Tash? Also, my station, turn my body away from the patient. Awesome. And what else do you do? Like, do you sort of freeze and just like wait and hope that they're going to finish their story at some point? Or do you kind of like show signs of frustration, or you move towards the door, or like, are there any other actions that you take from that for Bex you as well? Like, do you then like start with the consult or whatever? Like, what do you action wise then do after that like physical reaction? Oh, sorry, I missed yours. Always saying yes to whatever seems easier. Was that an action or just a comment, like a general comment? Lower the tone of my voice, lower the tone of my voice, and respond in a manner that allows me to turn off my emotions. Okay. Lauren, another action, the opposite of avoidance is doing something easier. Yeah. So in this line, you'll just write like the exact actions. Like if there was a video camera, I probably wouldn't see which one is easier for you. I would just see you doing that thing. If that makes sense. I would just see your behavior. Try not to follow up with any questions to end the conversation and lead them towards the door. It's fine. You can, in the specific situation that you were thinking about, that you had mentally, what did you do in that specific situation? So M, walk away from both tasks. Okay. And what did you do instead? Went for coffee. Yeah, cool. Coffee. Made tea. Coffee and tea. Awesome. Okay, cool. So the one that I put when I get anxious and defensive, um, then I will say something like, but did you do what I gave you to do? Like I'll kind of turn it on them, like, but did you, because I'm getting defensive, I'll be like, you know, kind of turning it on them, like, did they do what they were supposed to do? Or like I'll just keep quiet and I'm like fuming and I'm like silently, like a little lawyer, like building my defense. Like, but I did this right and I did that and I them that this and I did mention this and I whatever. Like I'm building this like defense case in my head. Okay, cool. So now we want to think about the result of all of this, right? We bumped up against that specific situation. We had that specific thought. We had that particular emotional reaction to that. And from that emotion, we had particular actions and behaviors that came out of that. What is kind of the end result of all of those behaviors? Like if you think of the bigger picture kind of thing, what what is the like bigger result that you get from that? Other than tea and coffee, right? That's also a worthwhile result from this. I mean, you're welcome to mention it, but like, what else? What is the like bigger result? My admin doesn't get done. Exactly. Okay, awesome. And one of the areas that you can look for clues is again where your thought line was. Like whatever thought you had, we often have something that's either reinforcing that or reflecting that back in some kind of way. So if, for example, your thought was it's not important, you just keep reinforcing to yourself, like, look, I didn't do it. It's clearly not very important. I didn't take it. I didn't take it seriously. I didn't make it important, right? That's like the one of the bigger results, maybe. And if you think of like the patient examples, like what is the bigger result then that you are having with that patient interaction for the patient? I'm just kidding. I'm not sure. I try to take steps immediately to mitigate my response. So I usually just say, that's unfortunate. What do you think the triggers have been? So that can all be like actions that you take, right? But think of like the bigger picture. When you are doing all those things, like you tensing up, you moving away from the patient, you are saying those things. What is the bigger result? Like, what does your care look like then for the patient? What is your interaction with the patient? How connected are you to the patient? Yeah, interaction is cold. So the end result is something like, I don't really connect with that patient, right? Like you're not really present and connected with what that patient is telling you because you had this whole like mental story that went on, this like cascade of things that happened mentally. So you actually weren't able to be present with that patient and maybe ask them like, did you struggle with something with regards to like what I gave you to do at home? Or I'm so sorry that you're feeling that way. That must be really hard. Like, tell me a bit more, you know? Those kinds of things are like not even possible in that kind of cascade. So Bex, maybe expand on that a little bit, like when the interaction is cold, like what happens then to your connection with patients, maybe your feeling of like how you feel about your work, maybe how you feel about patients in general. It can be a bit more like bigger picture type thing. La, did you have one? Any Tash, M? Let me know if you need any help or felt writing and sorting not done, see myself as having failed, and therefore even feel more challenged by the task I was supposed to do. Anxious the next time I try considering failure history. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like trying to find the T line again. I make bad choices. So you almost like reinforce yourself, like, see the bad choices I make. I can't make good choices. Yeah, like sometimes it's almost like reaffirming a certain identity belief that you already have, you kind of reinforcing that. Or yeah, like a reflection. I'll expand on that concept just now. Small talk, I feel resentful of the patient, which affects my relationship with them and other patients like that. Makes me not want to engage with patients. Yeah. Whereas I can't manage my time. Yeah. So you almost like reinforce that identity of like, I'm not good at managing my time. I always just do something else. I do the easier thing or I go do something else. Or so the one I had for this was just if I am doing all these things, if I'm building my case, if I'm turning it back on them, I'm not able to be present with the patient in the way that I would like to be. Also, I have no clarity on the real reason why they're not feeling better because I didn't want to ask in case they were going to criticize me or they were going to have some sort of judgment of me. So I almost like avoided that completely. So I actually now don't know what the real reason is that they're not feeling better. And I end up blaming the patient. So this is where I say, like, sometimes it's reflected, like you are having the thought that they are blaming and criticizing you, and you end up blaming and criticizing them. Same as a thought of like, the patient isn't listening to me. You go on this whole like mental thing of like, they don't respect me. They just, like they don't care about what I say. You're having this whole emotional, like mental experience, and you're not listening to them. You can't be present with them and actually hear what they are telling you. So it often gets like reflected back exactly what you are sort of experiencing from their side, or it reinforces the same thing. I kind of like Em was saying, it just reinforces the fact like, see, I can't make good decisions. I can't make good choices. Or Lauren, like, see, I'm not good at managing my time. Like it reinforces the same thing that you had a thought about. Like I didn't make it important. I didn't prioritize it. Sorry, Bex. I tend to switch off the cold emotion pretty quick. My next step is to find out why they have pain, and I always ask what the triggers have been for their pain. I don't stay cold for the whole consult and try and meet the patient where they are. Yeah. So that's awesome. And that in like in a world where you can realize what you're doing and you can kind of switch it up and be like, oh, okay, I was going on that little journey. Let's get back to this, right? That's awesome. Okay. So there are so many ways that we can kind of use this tool. Like this is one of the ways that we can use it just more to kind of see what's going on. Like we just want to get a bit clearer, like what happens when I have those thoughts and I have those emotions and I have those actions, like what happens? Like we're just looking at it and seeing more clearly, like what is our role in this? What is our how are we contributing to this? And that's not to, again, it's not to beat ourselves up or to make us feel like we're failing. We are trying to just see the situation more clearly and seeing like, oh, I can see how the way that I'm approaching this is not particularly helpful, or is just reinforcing the same things, or is just doing making me into a clinician that I don't really want to be, right? And then when we want to start kind of getting more curious, and maybe we want to say like, is there another way to think about this? And we're not trying to take something that like is like this overly positive like mantra of like, I'm amazing, I never do anything wrong, patients are incredible, they never blame, they always are, like, they wouldn't disrespect me or whatever. We're not trying to like bulldoze our way to like some belief that we don't even connect with or believe, right? Because it's not going to create the emotion that is going to change this map essentially. But we just want to think of a thought of like, what else could be true? What else is just as true as that thing? And usually you will just find something a bit more neutral. So when you look at your thought, it's usually very all or nothing, like I never do this, or I always do this, or something like that. Or it just has like an assumption about someone else, what is going on for someone else that you couldn't know. There's no way to know that, right? Or it has what we call like a very fixed mindset to it. Like you don't believe that you could ever like grow or change, or it could ever be different, or maybe it's different in different circumstances, right? We just want to add a little bit of nuance to that thought. So for example, this thought of like they are blaming or criticizing me, I could literally just have the thought, let me find out more about what they just said. That is literally like a completely neutral thought. It has no like, I'm trying to like believe something completely different, right? I'm just trying to have a little bit more nuance to what I'm thinking. And another way that you can think about this is like, just what is useful, right? Like sometimes it can be true, but it's not particularly useful. So how can I find a thought that just feels a little bit more useful, right? And let's try and see if we can get like a little few more like examples. Just want to go back up to the thoughts. Going up. So like even if you did it as like, sometimes I don't make great decisions. Like even that is more neutral, right? Because you're just saying like it's not always. Sometimes I really do make amazing decisions, right? So we're just trying to find like a little bit more nuance about that. Like I always pick the easy option. That's very all or nothing, right? Like you don't always pick the easy option. You're a farm for sake. I was like, can I throw it? Um, okay. So I just want to see some of the thoughts. Um, yeah, like I have admin that needs to get done. It could even just be like one of the options of how I can use my time is also admin. It has a very different emotional like charge to it, right? When we are like blaming ourselves, we're having a judgment about ourselves, we're having a judgment about someone else. It's much more emotionally charged. So I'm at fault, right? If a patient is not getting better and you think I'm at fault, right? That is a very all or nothing thought, right? Because we all know there's so many factors that could influence whether a patient feels better or not. So you can just be like, again, the thought of like, that's interesting. I wonder what could be the reason that they're not feeling better. So if you guys have any like neutral thoughts that you want to share that maybe to you just feels a little bit more useful in that situation. It's not completely on a different spectrum of like something you don't believe, but it's just something a little bit more nuanced and neutral. Another way that you can think about it is reverse engineering. So how would I want to be feeling in that situation? Or maybe what is the action that I want to take and how can I reverse engineer that? And you're welcome to share. And then we'll be ending on. You thought, I don't always take the easy way out. I get the most important things done as much as I can. And even if that also, I mean, part of this is like we need to practice these thoughts, right? Because they're not necessarily, they don't come easy to us. They are not our default. And you could even say like, yeah, I can practice prioritizing my time. Amazing. Because you can say like, yeah, sometimes I get things done, right? Like sometimes I do the thing that I said I was going to do. Sometimes I prioritize my time well. Sometimes it's even just saying like, I'm willing to believe that I can do this, or I'm willing to believe that at some point I may be able to whatever. Like it's just a statement of like, I'm willing to believe that there is another way to see this. Also the truth. So Bex, what thought would you have to be thinking in relation to that specific situation? Like the patient comes in and say, I'm not better. What thought would you have to think in order to be in the space where you get curious and you ask like, oh, what are the triggers? If you guys need to jump off, please do. No. Yeah, that also feels more neutral. It could be that I'm not to blame. Exactly. New thoughts. Sometimes I choose to take the action, task that aren't on top of my list, and I get something done. Awesome. And you don't need, yeah, like sometimes you reverse engineering, but like I said, sometimes you don't even have to like sometimes we almost think of it as like I want to trick my brain into like getting the thing done that I was going to get done type thing. And you don't even have to do that. Like you don't have to say like that is what I should have been doing, and so I'm going to like try and like find a way, almost like a brain trick to get there. But if that's a thought that genuinely feels like yes, that's true, yeah, cool, and it helps you do the thing that you wanted to do, then that's awesome. So I'll open the door and walk my patient to the front desk. Okay, and what would you have to be thinking in order to do that? Like, what would you have to be thinking for that to be your action instead of the other stuff? And a way you can think about it is like, what would the emotion be that I need to be feeling in order to do that? And then what is the thought that I need to feel? So you guys can take that and you're welcome to message me about it or like, this is what I came to. And sometimes this can be used to like believe completely new things about yourself. And that is also really freaking exciting when you like realize that you believe something completely different about yourself that than you did previously. But again, it's always from that space of like, this is compassionate, this is not trying to fix myself or change myself, but I'm just trying to get curious about what is actually going on there. Like you can think about it as trying to be better friends with your brain. Like you sitting down with it and you're saying like, hey, tell me what's going on. Like, I just want to understand. I just want to like get to know you a bit better. That can be like the way that you are approaching this kind of work. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be looking at the other side of the equation, essentially like what is going into the tank. We're going to talk a lot about health and our approach to that. And let me just stop the share. If you need to jump off, please do. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. If you do want to ask anything or keep workshopping this, I'll stay on for the next 15 minutes or so. So you're welcome to stay on if you just want to like clarify a few things, or you just want to keep workshopping, or you want to pick something else on your list that you want to workshop as well. I'll be staying on for that. So thank you so much, guys, and have an awesome Sunday. Let me stop recording.